Good evening, dear participants. Um, Welcome to the session. I'm happy to welcome you all, and this is our session number 18 in the row. And we have today with us Dr. Dhwani Vajrajani. Madam has already given us a talk on European classics. Today she's there among us to talk about feminism. Uh, Madam, without much ado, uh, let me invite you to take over.
Thank you so much, Pat. Hello, everyone. Good evening. This topic, when I think of, it's such a broad topic, broad subject. So, which is not possible, to cover in just 1 hour. So, this is just the first half of the topic that I will try to cover. So, I have today, I mean, today's session will be about feminism up to 1950. Okay, now the term feminism, we have been uh, hearing this term, we have been, talking about this, we have been reading about this so much that now this is now not a new term or not a less familiar term for anyone, right? And feminism, when we speak, then it is the first thing that is there. It is a social phenomenon. Again, it's something social, right? Because it is related to women and it is a movement. Okay, so it is a social movement, right? uh, I would today begin from, say, the earliest uh, ideas on this, and then we'll slowly move from say, starting from Aristotle. I came across this even in Aristotle's time. This particular hierarchy between the men and women, it was there even in those times. So I mean, it is very old. This hierarchy is just from the time the society came into existence, from the time the society uh, uh, came to be patriarchal one. From then, from that those times onwards, we have been seeing this hierarchy, and it is still the same. So starting from the earliest, I will then move to the early modern times. From there then, 17th century, 18th century, 19th century, and the first half of the 20th century, right? So feminism, the term was not existing when this idea prevailed. At that time, the term was not there. The term came later on. But we can see that I would turn off my video because I have some points that I would read. And yes, I have the material with me, which I will share later on. By tomorrow, you will get this material also. Okay. So I will just turn off my video. Fine. If there is any problem with the audio, then please let me know. Okay, so there will be, so many names that you might hear for the first time today. There are so many, small movements or social activities that also will be here covered. So the things that you may hear for the first time, you may note it, and later on also the material will be provided. Okay, so firstly, the definition I begin from. Okay, the simplest definition of feminism is the feminism is the struggle to end sexual oppression. Very simple definition. It is a movement, it's a struggle, it's a fight to end sexual oppression because women have been for centuries oppressed by men who have been superior in this patriarchal society. So the second term that catches our attention is patriarchy. So what does it refer to? Patriarchal refers to power relations in which women's interests are subordinated to the interests of men. Okay, so what is patriarchy? Patriarchy is this wherein the women's interests are subordinated to the interests of men, and this refers to the power relations. Okay, this is called power relations. But in these power relations, one is subordinated to the other. Uh, Now, when we first saw that it is to end sexual oppression. Okay, it is actually the sexual oppression or exploitation that is the root of the whole struggle. Okay, so which means then the very interesting point here that comes is that biology is the destiny, just that the woman in some way lacks something, and due to that she is she has remained, inferior or subordinate. So that is something biological, sexual. Why it has been always easy for the men to oppress women physically? Because there is something in the female body or about the female body that has given men, superiority or power over her. So biology here is the destiny. Now, here I quote the words of Aristotle, because we can see that feminism, now we speak of this as ism, but actually the attitude towards women, or the treatment to women, or the way the men used to look at women was already the same in the ancient times also. So to quote Aristotle, I say women were women by virtue of a certain lack of qualities. These are the words of Aristotle. So even Aristotle held this, that women were women by virtue of a certain lack of qualities. Okay, now qualities here, when we say that, qualities here do not mean the intellect or intelligence or that. It is just something biological. uh, this actually, the old idea, okay, the earliest perspective or the earliest idea was the idea of essentialism. It is known as essentialism. And the essentialist idea, believes that women are physically weaker. Women are physically or biologically weaker than men. It also held that women are, you know, inclined towards emotions. They are more emotional, and men are more intelligent, or men are the intellectuals, or men have logic, women have emotions. Okay, so logic and emotion, these two also like are the part of essentialist thinking. This is the very earliest way of earliest perspective, that biologically women are weaker, and emotionally, I mean, women are emotional, they which means that they are not capable of reasoning, or they are not capable to be rational. Okay, so this is that. uh, Now we, because now there is nothing much in between, between the ancient thinking and the early modern, there is nothing in between which is notable. So I directly move to the early modern period. Early modern, when I hear say the period that is covered here, it's from 1550 to 700. uh, Here, in during these periods, the feminist activity that took place aimed at challenging the prevalent social view. Which was the social view? That women are weak and irrational creatures who should be controlled by men. This is the early modern thinking, right? And here the feminist activities that happened, they aimed at challenging this particular this view that was prevalent in the society, that women are weaker, women are irrational creatures, and that is why they need to be controlled, or they should be controlled by men. See the view, see the attitude. So, from here, and when we come to the early modern times, the feminist activities had begun. They were going on, but in from the early modern time, we can see the feminist activity taking place. Okay, now slowly and gradually, there was some increase in the feminist activity. Uh, in the year, there are, I would also I mean, some there are some years which are important, and there are some events that took place during those times. I would just here mention those things, because these are all important things. Okay, these were, you know, the milestones in the whole history of feminism. So in the year 1589, there was a work. The work is titled Her Protection for Women. Okay, the title is Her Protection for Women, and the author is Jane Anger. Jane Anger. The work is Her Protection for Women in the year 1589. Why this work is important? This work tried to reinterpret Genesis from Bible. Okay, Genesis. And the reinterpretation of Bible gave a new perspective to, you know, to look at the condition of women. Okay, so this is also notable because in the patriarchal society, when a woman reinterprets Bible, then it is something that is remarkable. So in 1589 this happened. uh, in the year 1642. Okay, now before I move on, let me make it clear that when I'm dealing with feminism, which is not only confined to England. Okay, it is not only about Britain. Here there would be some movements mentioned, some feminists also from America, USA. So it talks about, you know, the feminist activities in Britain as well as in USA. So when I am mentioning all these things, so the feminist activity was parallelly going both in both places. It was also going increasing in Europe, and it was also increasing in USA. The first political activity, if we now think about the political action. Okay, till now there was no political action taken. There were just in one corner of the society there were small activities going on, but now, you know, at the political front, the first political action happened in the year 1642, wherein there were some women. Okay, middle class or working class women were working in different trades. Okay, small trades, and there they were exploited in like so much that they were all, you know, it, they were now, it became intolerable for them. So they went to the Duke of Richmond. It was in London. Like, I'm talking about Britain here. So in 1642, they went to the group of women, these traders, small traders, women. They went to the Duke of Richmond, and they, you know, they with anger they expressed dissatisfaction at their workplace, and they said that their work condition, the condition of their workplace, or say, financially, they are not given, sufficient amount. They are not paid well, and they are exploited. So they just went to the leader to improve their work condition, their status. Basically, their status as working class women was in a very bad condition. So and they were like treated also very, uh, pitilessly. They were treated by the owners, okay, or by the people who were authority. So they just went to that they were all so dissatisfied with the what the earning, and as well as their other exploitation. So this was the first time that the women, uh, on the political front, they raised their voice. Then there is, in 1688, the Glorious Revolution, and literary women. For the first time, women started publishing. Women, literary women now, which includes one name, if you remember, that is Ephra Ben. So Ephra Ben and a couple of other women, now they were writing, in literature. The first few names, if we remember, then Ephra Ben's name comes there. So they published, and they expressed their feelings. They expressed their emotions, feelings, and dissatisfaction through literature. And this was also the part of Glorious Revolution. There was already Glorious Revolution going on. 1688 is the year. And in these times, it was the time of reform, and these literary women tried to bring reform through literary publications of their works. uh, there was in the year 1652, uh, chronologically this may not be in order, but in the year 1652, there was a society formed, which was the Society of Friends. The Society of Friends was founded in England by a group who was known as, the people were known as Quakers. 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 The Quakers found the Society of Friends. The Society of Friends basically, believed in the idea that everyone is equal. There is no difference. If all are equal, equality among all people, right? So, with this idea, the Society of Friends was founded in England. This is, and by the Quakers. Now, the Quakers were the group of people. They were the ones who founded it. They were men, but then so many women also under this. See, this is 17th century still, but so many women got benefited because of this, right? But then this was only for some time. Then it was again the injustice done to women again started. But the Quakers tried to bring reform, and they believed in equality among all, which means that women also were equal. So so many women could get educated under this, okay. So this was the time, like among the some important activities. This was again one important event, the Quakers and the Society of Friends. You can remember the year was 1652, the year in which it was founded. uh, Feminism during Enlightenment. Okay, now enlightenment was the time, the era where, the basic question was the rights of men. The rights of men. So here, along with the rights of men, there was an awareness that came among the women about fighting for their own rights. So rights of women now became the chief concern for the feminists. So feminism during enlightenment is focused mainly or is concerned with the rights of women. There is one community that was formed by Frances Wright. Frances Wright, an important feminist during the age of enlightenment, and the community that was formed, which fought for the rights, that was known as Neshoba. Nashoba. Neshoba. Neshoba community was formed by Frances Wright, and this aim was only, to get access to education, to get equal rights, fine, everywhere in all these stratas of society, in all the frontiers of society, getting equal rights was the main aim for the women or feminists of the time, and Neshoba represents one such community or group. Now, with enlightenment, now we enter the first wave feminism. See, now the feminist movement is becoming more and more systematic. So, the first wave feminism was mainly concerned with the rights of women, women's education, women's access to education, higher education, and laws about marriage. So these were the primary concerns for the first wave feminism, wherein we can see the organized feminist activity in Britain and USA in the second half of 19th century. Okay, basically the first wave begins from the second half of 19th century, but the roots are already there. The seeds were sown already by people like Wollstonecraft. Okay, Wollstonecraft we can include in the first wave feminism. So but first wave, why it is titled as first wave feminism, because the organized feminist activities or more organized activity in Britain and USA began in during these times in 19th century, the latter half and the whole of 19th century we can include in the first wave. And US and Britain, both were undergoing the reforms. The activities were parallelly going on, and both were considered sisters, like they were like sisters. you know like the women of Europe looked at the women of USA as their own sisters. So uh, this was that. And to move on, uh, this particular wave relied on the independent and sporadic activities of the 18th century feminists. Yes, so this particular, it is considered that the second half of 19th century was the beginning of first wave, but basically first wave relied on the independent and sporadic activities of the 18th century feminists. These feminists challenged women's lack of access to education, unequal employment opportunities. See, unequal employment opportunities, that was also there, one of the concerns, and unjust marriage laws. Marriage laws were so unjust that the woman was always done injustice. They also reflected on the plight of middle class single women. Right. So you can actually now remember those who have studied Wollstonecraft. I think some of you have studied Wollstonecraft, a vindication. So you can actually remember that Wollstonecraft is talking about all these things. She also questions, to the philosophers, that why women should not get equal access to education, or not equal, but access to education. So this particular uh, group of feminists, or the feminists of this time, they challenged the women's lack of access to higher education, inequality in the matter of employment opportunity, and unjust marriage laws. and again middle class single women who were very exploited because they had no place as such. They were single women and middle class women. So they were the most suffering class of women, I can say. So these feminists also tried to improve their status. uh, One of the Before we come to Wollstonecraft, there is one more name that we should remember here, is Abigail Adams, but she is an American. Abigail Adams in USA was the most influential woman during uh, American Revolution. Okay, American Revolution was going on during these periods. So Abigail Adams, she was the most influential woman in USA. And now, interestingly, Mary Wollstonecraft was also influenced by Abigail Adams and also by French Revolution. Okay, so American Revolution was all going on. French Revolution was, also going to. I mean, it was also there when Wollstonecraft was writing. She was also influenced by French Revolution, but she was also influenced by Abigail Adams. So now coming to Wollstonecraft. Wollstonecraft is the most, significant contributor in the first wave feminism, rather in the whole history of English feminism, I can say. Mary Wollstonecraft was the one, the bold woman, the courageous lady who was one of the very few women who raised her voice against, the injustice done to them. Especially her problem was with the philosopher Rousseau. And uh, she was influenced by French Revolution. So certainly she talked about, or she also fought for, or advocated the rights for women. She strongly put her arguments that women are equal to men. Women must get education, and for women's access to education and to make it better, there should be the change in the education system. And how should be the education system, that also she talks about in Vindication of the Rights of Women. Wollstonecraft has big problem with Rousseau. uh, she she has problem with Rousseau because Rousseau said that women are naturally inferior to men. Naturally, this word, Rousseau uses. And Wollstonecraft has a big problem and she attacks. How can you say? Naturally means what? Nature has given, nature has made us unequal. No, nature has never sent us here, as different. We all are naturally equal. It is the society that has created this hierarchy. So Wollstonecraft very boldly responds to Rousseau's arguments, and the arguments that Rousseau has done, that is in his work Emily. Okay, Emily is the work by Rousseau, wherein he has put some very strong statements uh, about the inferiority of women. And he says that women are sentimental, and women, lack reason, and women are naturally weak, right? So it's not possible to there is no point in calling them equal because they are naturally weak. This is what Rousseau says. So Wollstonecraft very strongly opposes that, attacks him. And another thing that Wollstonecraft also has to say is about marriage relationship. She says that marriage, the ideal marriage relationship, uh, is the one where the husband and wife are not husband and wife, but they are friends. So only on the ground of friendship the marriage relationship can remain healthy. So she also had to say about this. She talks about education, she talks about rights of women, basic rights of women, and she also talks about the marriage relationship. Okay, moving on. uh, and she wanted other women, she actually called women. She wished that full participation should be there from the side of women in the rights and duties of citizenship. Okay, women had no right to vote. Women were not considered citizens. So Wollstonecraft, asked women to fully participate in the rights and duties of citizenship, which they actually deserve. When the French Revolution was actually, all for right of men. Then Wollstonecraft said that if you are talking about the rights of men, what about the rights of women? That's why she is writing this work. Uh, and this work becomes historically really important, very important. Okay, coming to the next point. Grimke sisters. uh, Angelina Grimke, who was a lecturer, like a speaker or a public speaker for American Anti-Slavery Society. Okay, there was one more issue that revolves around the black women. There were slaves. Black women were enslaved by the whites. Black people, I mean, black people were enslaved by the whites, and their black women's condition was so miserable that if you read about them, you start crying. So uh, Angelina Grimke was a spokesperson for the American Anti-Slavery Society. Her sister Sarah Grimke, also she was also a public speaker. She was a public speaker for abolitionist cause and women's rights. Okay, abolitionist cause and women's rights. So the Grimke sisters also contributed in the development of feminist activity. There is one uh, period which covers the 60 years, 1820 to 1880. This the idea during these period, uh, or the belief that emerged, was is known as the cult of democracy. Cult of democracy, where it was believed that women's place is or should be only in, private sector. Private sector means her woman should be within the house, or woman should be always, you know uh, doing private function. There is no role of woman, you know in any public sector. And men on the other side can play public role. So this particular idea, a cult of democracy, it is known as, it actually, created this difference. It actually increased the this gap, that women's place is only inside the home or in the domestic world, and men only can play the public role. uh, I'm very sorry, I'm unable to read the messages. Pratiksha or Path, you can please later on just read so that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, uh, fine. So, Cult of Democracy, 1820 to 1880 is the time where woman should be always, on the role of private functioning, and men always should have the public role. So that was there. Then the one more, there are a couple of other women also. I would just name them. You can note down. Harriet Taylor Mill and John Stuart Mill. Harriet Taylor Mill. Harriet married twice. Okay, her first husband, and then John Stuart Mill was her second husband. but both of them were active feminists. John Stuart Mill's Subjection of Woman is a well known work. Uh, in the early 19th century, now we talk about the early 19th century, women in Europe and in the USA, uh, they had no legal identity. Okay, now we are now till now we were talking about the rights, women's rights, and women's access to education, and now another issue comes up. Now that women had no legal identity. Okay, so they were not considered citizens, that we know, but legally, if something happens, then women had no voice. So in the early 19th century, uh, still the women in Europe and USA had no legal identity. So only the identity that was there is only of their husband. Okay, so through their husbands, they had some identity. But when it came to if for example, so a couple gets divorced, and if there is some legal action to be taken, so there the woman had no voice. Okay, the woman had no legal identity. So uh, now some feminists tried to bring a reform in this matter. So we have a very important feminist female figure, that is Caroline Norton. She is very important for us because she herself has experienced injustice in her own married life, and it was because of that she fought, and she could pass a new act. Caroline Norton, she was a novelist and a poet, and she was she was married, and then she experienced, she got divorced, and she already was ill treated by her husband. Okay, and she got divorced. She had another person with whom she had relationship, but she already had 3 children from her first husband. So after getting divorced, now when it came to her relationship or her connection with her children, then she came to know that she did not have any access to her children once divorced. So she thought that this is injustice. So she took help of some legal, legal authority, and with her efforts, no, she could pass. She could with her efforts. What happened was that there was an act. The act is here. I would just name the act. The act is the Infant Custody Act. This act was passed in 1839, and after the passing of this act, infant custody bill was passed, and after the this thing, the mothers could now access the children. So mother could have the access to their children even when they were divorced. Okay, so this was something where which we can give credit to Caroline Norton for this. Similarly, there was one more act that she could pass. That act was the Matrimonial Causes Act, where generally the husband wife, when they got divorced, if uh, the woman was done injustice, and the woman could never complain on legal ground, because she had no legal identity. So then what happened was that the husbands were tried to create the woman's image, and tried to spoil the reputation of the woman by complaining in a very wrong manner. So it was a damage to the character of woman, and that's why Caroline Norton also wanted to uh, change this. So she, with her efforts, again, one more act she could pass, and that was the Matrimonial Causes Act. It was in 1857. um, Now we are slowly moving towards the 20th century. There is one more woman. See, there are so many feminists whose name we may not have heard in our during our MA, because these are the feminists whose contribution was really major. But there were some other women who were more prominent, or who were dominant in the world of literary creation, or in the world of literature. So these women have been, say, unknown to us. But there is one more feminist, Catherine Helen Spence. She was a Scottish born Australian feminist. See, Australia also was also in these movements, or these struggles was also going on in Australia. So Catherine Helen Spence, a Scottish born Australian feminist. She was a fiction writer and a social reformer. She campaigned for girls' education, divorce laws, and women's suffrage. Okay, women's suffrage movement was there, and Catherine Helen Spence campaigned for the girls' education and divorce laws. They all wanted to change these laws, because the women were very wrongly exploited. So but with the efforts of these feminists, there was a good reform that they could bring. There was one women's rights convention, Seneca Falls Convention, it was known as, and it took place in London. And the woman Lucretia Mott. There were two feminists of this time in USA, who came to London specially to attend this convention. This convention is known as Seneca Falls Convention. In 1848, it happened in. These two American women came to London to attend this, and it was a women's rights convention. It was also the World Anti-Slavery Convention. These there were a couple of conventions that were going on. This period was very rich in all these things. That there were such conventions going on, wherein the women representatives raised their voices. So we remember this rights convention, wherein Sojourner Truth raised her voice, if you remember, in black feminism. Right. So this was at the convention, such convention, which is known as Seneca Falls Convention, where the two American ladies came specially to London and attended and raised their voice here. Because, as I said, the American women and the European women, they considered each other as sisters. Uh, Yes, and in this convention, that two women participated. The result of this convention was a declaration of independence. A declaration of independence was that now the women can, act freely. The women can, uh, now the women have freedom. They can do what they want to do. This kind of declaration happened in this convention. That was the result. There is one American feminist, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and one more, Susan B. Anthony. These two were very prominent women, female figures in the 1850s in USA. Okay. Anthony, among the two, Anthony, that is, the full name is Susan B. Anthony. She helped to form a group which was known as the International Council of Women, and it was established in 1888, and it was established in Europe. Okay, this particular community, or this group, the International Council of Women, it was established in Europe, but the American feminist helped in forming this entity. About talking about Britain during 1850s, there were two feminists. One was Harriet Martin, and one more was Barbara Bodycon. Harriet Martin and Barbara Bodycon, these two feminists in 1850s in Britain, these were the prominent figures. So they, the American women, and they all joined hand, and they fought for their, aims, whatever they wanted to reform. They fought for the same. Here, Barbara Bodycon's contribution is remarkable. Barbara Bodycon, interestingly, her father was an advocate of women's rights. So Bodycon also, continued her father's activity, and she also wrote extensively in favor of women doctors and opportunities for women in higher education. Right, she wrote about, now these women, they started writing, and through writing they expressed their thoughts. So Bodycon also expressed her thoughts, especially she advocated the women doctors and the opportunities for women at the higher level. She also campaigned with Caroline Norton, we have just heard. So she campaigned with Caroline Norton in changing the legislation, right? The laws, the divorce laws, the marriage laws. In changing the legislation, she campaigned with Caroline. So I'm talking about 1850s. Uh, Women's social and political union. That is one more thing that you can note. There is one feminist, Emmeline Pankhurst. Emmeline Pankhurst in 1903 founded Women's Social and Political Union. Okay, this union again worked for the social and political cause, and women's rights, women's status in society, and now in also in politics. Okay, women started taking interest in politics. So this was there. Then women's suffrage movement was, now it was going on in the from the second half of the 19th century. Now the women's suffrage movement was becoming more and more active. uh, Early 20th century, came with a new question. Till now everything was going quite smoothly. Parth, I would just take 5 more minutes. uh,
It's okay, ma'am. It's okay, ma'am. Continue.
yeah. uh, 20th century had a new question, that calling yourself a feminist, is it moral or is it immoral? So then, to be a feminist, was it to be a lesbian? This was a new way of the new perspective, a new way of looking at the feminists. So feminists, to become a feminist or to call yourself a feminist is something bad. Okay, this was for the first time the feminism in the sense of immorality. Okay, for the first time in the 20th century, in the beginning, this issue was raised. Maybe because, with the changing time, the morality also changed, and now people who were, who were shouting, we are feminists, we are feminists, and now, for the men also, how can they accept the women becoming stronger? So now they looked at it in a different way. uh, in this era, now in the 20th century, the very important figure, very important feminist, who is the first feminist with whom feminism becomes feminist criticism, is Virginia Woolf. And Virginia Woolf is very important because for the first time she talks about a room of one's own, that is the place, the private space, as well as financial independence of women. Okay, for the first time, Virginia Woolf. And Virginia Woolf was the first one who, for the first time, tried to see the relation between woman and literature. So, uh, Virginia Woolf, in the first wave feminism, and especially in the modern times in the 20th century, she is the most significant figure, contributor, and we all have studied her, certainly. Similarly, now with this, I would end my talk. That is Simone de Beauvoir. Okay, by the time we come to 1950, Simone de Beauvoir was already talking about uh, the social side of her idea was that it is all because of the society is responsible, and society is the one that makes woman. So woman is not born but becomes a woman. And her statement I have put here is that I would with that I would end my talk, that existence precedes essence. Right, existence, where you exist, that precedes the essence, which means that you are existing in the society. So society here determines who you are. So here, uh, her she says that society, she her she called herself a feminist first, but then when she saw that her identity as a feminist, or her calling herself a feminist, is not really working, is somehow, is misunderstood by people, or people are not taking it very seriously. So she says that now I'm not a feminist, I'm a social worker. Right. So she, like, we can call her feminist, a social worker, whatever. uh, but calling herself a feminist was like, then later, okay, then later on again she realizes that for fighting for women, she has to be a feminist, because only then the society would understand that I am fighting for women. Otherwise, what happens, that if she remains a social worker, then actually woman's cause is not, considered. Social worker then means working for the good of the society, or reforming the society in general. So then she thought it necessary to become a feminist, so that through the identity of a feminist she can actually, bring reform in the world of women. Fine. So her feminism, but I will begin, when I begin next time, I'll begin with Simone de Beauvoir, and then we will come to the latest, that is the end of the 20th century. So I know it was so full of so many movements, acts, and so many feminist names I have mentioned. I think I know that for you people, this was little too much, a very heavy dose. But this is how, whenever we talk about the movement, then these are the important points that I thought I should share with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dhwani Madam, for this enlightening session. Participants, if you have any question, you can write in chat box or you can unmute yourself and then ask.
Come on.
Yeah, in
Yes.
between,
Huh.
no, there is not a question, ma'am,
Hmm.
as such.
Hmm.
But when you are taking the session, in between this, Janani has put a message
Hmm.
where he has written ideology of separate spheres. So are you asking something or you were adding something in the conversation, Janani? Okay, meanwhile, he answer. There is one question from Anay Bhatt.
Hmm.
He said that we all know the origin and roots of feminism, but do we know how patriarchy came into existence? It's a yeah. And the second question he asked, who gave this thought to men that they are superior to women?
Okay.
Very interesting question.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say that, see, feminism actually is a Western idea. Yeah, West. It's when we are talking about this patriarchy, and also it is mainly about the West. So what I think is that uh, in the Western, in the Christian mythology, there is fall of men. Okay, and God as masculine, fall of men, and Adam and Eve. Again, here, the sin uh, committed by it is not a crime, but it is the sin by Eve. So the woman as the sinner is there in the Christian mythology. I think this has, you know, been there in the this is the root of this hierarchy or patriarchy in the Western world, because when we are talking about feminism, we are talking about it in the Western, as a Western term only, because in India, in India there was always uh, women were always worshipped. You have the examples of Gargi, Maitreyi. Okay, these women, they have always been considered Devi. So in India, I think there was never such a hierarchy, or there was never such a mentality. But from the times we were colonized, then this hierarchy has been created, and now even in our country also, we are also following the Western feminism. But otherwise, this is I mean, I look at it from this, like, God is he. Okay, we never have thought of God as the she. So when this or the father, okay, father figure is the supreme. So that is why from there comes patriarchy, and then society has been established on patriarchal ground. Okay, there are some 2 3 messages.
Yes, ma'am. Uh, there is one question from
Hmm.
Janani.
Hmm.
He said that, and first he observed that people confuses with the terms feminist and feminizes. Being feminist is good, and feminizes is dangerous. A feminist can be any gender who thinks of gender equality. Why men in general is not interested in feminist studies?
uh, See, it is not so. There have been male feminists also, but why the men is all powerful? No, the men has power. Why would he be so interested uh, in seeing the equal status, of women? So naturally, but there have been male feminists. uh,
Yes, ma'am. Another question by same.
hmm.
He said that, ma'am, I was still. It was just the answer. to what I have asked, and there he said that, ma'am, it was telling about the ideology that was prevalent in Victorian era,
Ha.
that men has to work and earn, and a
Hmm.
woman has to be the angel of the house.
Yes.
So it was just his answer on what he has mentioned, the ideology of the separate space, that
Okay.
how they were behaving, or the nature of the men and the women.
Hmm.
Now, one more interesting question from Nitin Pictoria.
Hmm.
He asked that, ma'am, can you throw light on feminism in India? Second question by him:
Hmm.
how do Indian women novelists have been influenced by this movement, and how they have reflected in their works?
Uh, in India, you know, uh, it's so many families have been orthodox, and so many women have had to suffer uh, due to this orthodox mindset. So there have been, the feminists like Anita Desai, Kajal Ozaved, the way she is talking, that she is trying to be manly. So they have been, ultimately they have been influenced by the Western feminism only. Although I would say that there is no theory in India, the theory that we have in Western feminism. In India, there has not been any theorizing, any attempt to theorize feminism. But there have been women writers, there have been who have really won the attention of people, and they are also here. Now what has happened is that the Western world is uh, progressing. They are becoming, now you can see, if you go to Europe, you can see the women working in all the fields. You can see women at every toll booth, or at railway station, or every major position you can see a woman holding there. So now the Western scenario has changed. But now in India, due to the orthodox mindset, due to still the old mentality that woman has to look after the house, woman as the homemaker, still there are families where women's condition is still the same. Okay. In India it is still more felt. But it is difficult to change the this condition, I think, because India is yet to grow, it is yet to develop. And hopefully with the development the condition of women will improve. But these days there are, I would say, Kajal Vaidya is the feminist, radical feminist, who can post her picture, you know uh, in a swimming pool. She is enjoying with her son, who is a young man. So she can, try she tries to show that a woman can be manly, or woman can do what a man can do. uh, and there have been women like okay, I know, but she's Urdu. But there have been women who have talked about the suffering. Okay, how they themselves have suffered. That also they have talked about in literature. So in India, I can say that now the condition of women in India is worse than the condition of women in Europe and America. That is certainly the case. It will take time for the Indian women to really improve their own status. So I don't know much about the beginning of Indian feminism, etc. But like there have been women writers, and women writers have been like, either they are writing about their own experiences, or they are writing about reforming the society. Okay.
In with continuation with the earlier question,
Hmm.
He asked, do they have the same canon or their perspective is different one?
No, nah, they are different. They are writing, and from their writing, we can make out that some woman is writing. Right. There were like in Western feminism, there have been attempts, and then people are now we will when we talk about the post 1950s feminism. There I'll discuss about women and literature, women as writers. So there are some women are saying that women should write, as in the work of women there should be femininity reflected, and there are other women who are saying that it should not be it should not be so, a work should not be recognized as a feminine work or a masculine work. But in India, like those who have written in India, Indian women, those who have written, they have been their femininity has been reflected in their works, and certainly their perspectives are different from male perspectives. Um there are they have been different, right? As writers they have been really different. Canonically also, they have been, I think they have been much different. Here the difference between the male writer and the female writer we can really make out, because as I said that the women themselves have suffered. Okay, so there have been women who have not suffered and they are bold. So there still, but then there is, the tone that they are trying to become manly. They are trying to be like men. So again, we can actually make out that a woman is writing. So the perspectives, their perspectives have been different.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. There is one hand raised
Hmm.
by Panchitara Avni.
Hmm.
You can unmute yourself and ask a question. Avni, okay, she left, so it was my by mistake she has raised her hand.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Fine. All
so I
right.
found that there is no such question in chat box.
Okay.
No, ma'am, I have raised my hand.
Okay, Ankita, you have raised. Okay, yes.
Ankita.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Uh, in the beginning of the session, when you defined feminism, you
Mm-hmm.
said that it was to end sexual oppression.
Mm-hmm.
So it says that it was not really connected with any gender. Rather, it was uh, rather it was about every gender which was sexually oppressed, isn't it?
But then there are how many genders?
Transgenders, we don't consider them. Why don't we
Trans?
consider them as?
No,
Yeah.
no, do, we
So
don't.
was
No, 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 no. Yeah, 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 yeah.
so
That
is
is.
there any no
No,
was there
no,
any feminist who talked about transgenders who
no,
were,
no, no.
because
There is.
they always have been sexually oppressed.
Yes, yes, that is true. But that does not come under feminism. Here, when the definition was only with reference to women. Okay, so here there is no question of transgender. It's a different area. Uh, Here there is no question of them. Here only the exploitation or the oppression done to women. Okay, because we are talking about feminism, so it is only between women and men. Yeah, in this particular subject there is still not no space to the transgender. Now you can, I mean, we can take it now, the studies can be done on them now, but it is a different area. It's a different area.
Okay, ma'am.
Some message is there.
Yes, probably the last question of the session.
Hmm.
This the question is for from same Nitin Pitudia. He said that, and he quote the Sashi Deshpande,
Hmm.
that Sashi Deshpande doesn't accept the title feminist. So
Hmm.
his question is, what can be the reason that women writers don't want to be attached with feminist title?
Yes, is a good question. So a couple of other feminists also they deny themselves to be called a feminist, because see, feminist, when you say you are a feminist, one thing is sure that you want to fight for women, which means you consider yourself different from men. Okay, that is the reason that some such women, they don't want themselves to be uh, different from men and fighting for women. They don't want to they don't want to establish their identity as somebody other. I'm not the other, but I am the one who is done injustice to, and I'm fighting. So if I say feminism, feminist, then which means I'm limiting it to women. And when I say women, then I'm again looking at women as different from men or as the other. Okay, so that some feminists, that's why they do not use the term feminist.
Yeah. I think there is no question in chat box, and the session is about to end.
Okay.
So thank you so much, Dhwani Madam, for this engrossing lecture. You have enlightened our participants with so many writers, feminist writers. It will help them to prepare for net net and slet. Thank you so much, Dhwani Madam, and thank you so much, participants. Thank you again. Now, our next lecture would be on Wednesday, where Balaji Rangnathan would be there. So, kindly join on time and be in the session. Ask your questions so that it enhance your knowledge regarding particular field. You have a time to digest whatever we have discussed today. So, take your time and digest this writers. Better and come to know about this feminist writers better. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, participants. We'll call it a day and see you again. Bye.